What up, my peoples? Today I wanted to make a video about something called optimal. Yeah, I know that, I'm not going to get too technical on this. It's optimal distinctiveness theory. So before you run off saying, screw all that psychological crap, I came across the term when I was trying to find something about why it was an article I was reading about sports teams and why people become what they call super fans and why people are so obsessed with sports. And even though I do, joke around about sports being a waste of time, I completely understand the camaraderie. I have nothing against sports fans. In fact, I think it's great that you can find others to share things with on that level. But at the same time, realize it's not always about the game itself. And, that took me a while to understand, but I totally respect it. Of course, there's always the exception where people go a little too far and become hooligans, and some people will get in fist fights or get angry and violent because their team lost. That's there's always going to be that. You can't blame sports for that. It's really an attitude of people that we tend to find something to get behind, and that we will fight for. And if that becomes physical fighting over a sports game, well, that's a personal problem, not a sports problem. So the same thing happens with sports, or with the military and, governments going to war and convincing the people that it's our team against their team, and that it's okay to harm others as long as you're protecting your team kind of thing. But it goes much deeper than that. So to the main point of this, which is one of the most fascinating things to me is how we all want to fit in, but at the same time, we want to be unique. Now, not everybody fits that. I know a lot of people who really try hard not to be unique, and they really just want to fit in, and they want to be invisible, while other people don't want to fit in anywhere in any way. They want to be so unique and so individual that they can always be recognized, Now, optimal distinctiveness theory is basically the idea of trying to find the happy medium between those two things, fitting in with a group and being an individual. If you're just like everyone else, then you're overlooked as just being another person at the party, right? Now, I can only go by my standpoint in life. I tend to be a little eccentric. I dress in interesting ways, and definitely I'm not shy when it comes to garnering attention from the weird clothes I wear, especially when I go to concerts. And that's the interesting thing. When I use that as my example, I think, on one hand, I'm doing that for my distinction, to be myself, and say, that's that person's unique. But it's also a little bit of group fitting in with the group at the same time. It's being normal within the context of the group I'm hanging out with, if that makes sense. So if you go to if a hippie goes to a hippie party, let's say, for example, in the 60s, he's just going to be like everyone else. If a guy in a business suit goes to a hippie party, he's going to be the unique one. Not in necessarily a good way, but my point is that things are only eccentric or different or unique when they don't reflect the whole of the group. So within groups that are very unique, like beatnik, hippie type people, it's even harder to be more unique than the other person, the other people, to stand out. And for some people, they take that to the extreme, which is hipster. Hipster is basically following an entire crowd in not following crowds, if that makes sense. Only liking certain types of music, but once it becomes popular, I'm not into that anymore. Or, I refuse to wear that because other people like it. Or, that meme is outdated, it was used yesterday, kind of thing. I'm a nostalgic guy. I tend to still use old 80s terms. I don't go, much into, the modern world, because part of what makes me unique in my life is the fact that but at the same time, normal with a group of people. The group, my generation, Generation X, if you will, when you meet somebody else from that generation, you might have like a Family Guy type attitude. The creator of Family Guy and American Dad, he grew up in my generation, so therefore many of the jokes they make are from the 80s, and that's why I might I crack up at something that another person doesn't, from a different generation. So on the generational aspect of trying to be unique yet like everyone else. Kids are the perfect example, especially junior high schoolers. They want to fit in so bad that, with whatever group. I mean, no matter how unique you are at school, I was an extremely unique person, but I still wanted to fit in with at least my friends, my group of people. Hey, if everybody's skateboarding, let's skateboard, that kind of thing. The interesting thing is that teenagers want to fit in so bad with their peers, but they want to completely be distinct from the older generation. So groupthink becomes generational. They're like, oh, these are the old people, I don't want to dress or be like that, I want to be young. As you get older, that reverses. And a lot of older people say, oh, the kids of today and all of their technology and looking down at their phones. And, and on that note, before I forget, I thought about that earlier today. I thought, it's sad that people are blaming the devices and the technology for the same problems we've always had. I say, when you see someone looking down at a device and they're looking at something, for me, I'm usually reading an article about something that I'm learning. Whatever another person's using, Facebook or whatever, I have no idea. But it's interesting because it's the same way as looking at a kid reading a book 50 years ago. They say, well, is the kid reading Hemingway, or is he reading a science book, or is he just reading comics or some, dirty writings that really don't, The question is, does it matter? Everything you absorb, you're learning something from it. So, sorry to get a little off track there. It was just on my mind. But this idea of distinction, of distinctiveness, that we want to be different, I'm sure a lot of you share that, because I consider myself a unique person, but I still want to fit in with my peers. And one of the things that we've found is when a person becomes too distinct and they become too unique, it's very difficult for them to fit in and find a group where they can relate to it. And I've experienced this. I have only a few friends, and I can relate to a lot of people through YouTube, which, to tell you the truth, I have new exciting things that I drop a week later that I get into and then I lose interest in. YouTube's the only thing that I've been in for the long haul. It's been like 8 years making videos, and I asked myself this morning, why is this one thing something you keep doing? And I realized, because nowhere on earth am I going to meet this many awesome people and be able to share my ideas. And regardless of, the size of my channel, if I keep, it's small for a channel that's been here for 8 years, but it's because I don't let myself get pulled into the groupthink of, well, if I just talk about politics, or, oh, if I just talk about this local shooting, or if I just talk about something that angers people or gets people upset, or something that certain collectors are into, then, I could grow my channel to this huge thing. That's the point, is that what sets me apart. What I think is unique in my life is the fact that I share my ideas, and part of the reason why I do it here is because I get to get ideas and feedback from people that I can't meet in my neighborhood. If I was a Christian, I could go down to my church and meet other Christians, okay? If I was a sports fan, I could go to sports games and talk online with other sports fans. If I was a collector of Star Wars figures, I could go on and look at Star Wars figures. If I was a Lego builder, I could go to the Lego, the Lego museum and talk with other people that do this. The point being that the hobbies that I have tend to be very individualized to myself, and it makes it kind of lonely sometimes. And so I think it's really important that we remember doing our own thing is awesome, and it's crucial. If we follow the crowd the whole time, then we're going to end up miserable, because the crowd will always let us down. But it's safe. It's a lot safer than taking risks on your own. And for example, if a person wants to start a new clothing line, something, that's off the top of my head, and they want to, they can play it safe, and they could go with a style that has already been known. Say they could start making blue jeans, or they could start making button-up shirts, or they could go with some just totally off-the-wall new idea with, let's invent this new type of, it has to be quite innovative in order to catch on. The thing is, people do take those risks because the risks are kind of what make life worth living. So that's the cognitive dissonance, I guess, that I'm talking about here. which is the idea that we want to step out of our shell and just go crazy and, let's say, just sell everything you own and leave your home and go travel the world because of the novelty and awesomeness. But it holds us back because of the normalcy. We know what's consistent and we feel comfortable in our lives, and we don't want to give that up for what could be horrific for us, but it seldom is. And so maybe I'm telling this to myself as much as anyone else, to take chances. I've thought about it so many times, like these capsule blends, for example, that I made. I've had so many customers that ask me, when are you going to get these back? And I'm like, well, it's just kind of hard to market, and I'm not the marketing type. But then in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, I have several people saying they want these and that they love them, but I still can't bring myself to put a new product on the market, even knowing it works and knowing people like it. There's something that holds me back. And so I'm really fighting that in my own life, holding myself back from taking big steps. When a crisis is thrown upon us, we act. We have no choice. But when we create the crisis, in other words, when it requires us stepping out of our shell and actually taking steps and action to try something, it's much harder to do than if somebody just throws a pile of papers in your lap and says, here, finish this, we got to get it done. So that's why a lot of folks have, that they feel content about their lives, that they, have the space to be unique, but at the same time find a group where they can fit in and be comfortable. Because isn't that what we all want? Love, acceptance, tolerance, but at the same time, not just being another number, It's kind of like the schools, the idea of wearing a uniform in school versus being unique in school. That old, that goes back to the private schools and religious schools and whatnot, where everyone has to dress the same for the sake of trying to keep the controversy down of, uniqueness, in a way that actually has its benefits, is what I'm saying. That being like other people helps to eliminate that defensiveness we have around other people. So if you're in a group of all types of different people, you're going to have your guard up. When you're in a room, let's just say you're at your own home church, whatever it might be, and you're with people that relate and share your values, it's much easier to open up for people. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying is find a group. Don't be fearful of being a member of a group, but you don't have to follow all of a group's standards, but we all do, no matter how much we want to be unique. So embracing that, I think, is crucial. And also stepping up and saying, hey, I'm going to wear a funny hat today, and I don't care. Because, people like that. They like eccentricism. They like, people who are different and unique and say something positive at a negative time, or the unexpected, because really that's what it is all about, is that novelty, the unexpected novelty of life, so we can turn it into nostalgia. I'll talk to y'all later. Thanks to all my subs, patrons, friends. Thanks to the sun for shining in the sky, and I'll talk to y'all soon. As always, leave a comment. Peace and love.